Best starts. Yes. Okay. So now we're recording the session. And so folks who are not able to come to this session today will still be able to get this information. We're going to post the link to the recording on the Best Starts blog post after we're done here today. And we will also upload these slides that you're seeing into Zoom Grants as well after this presentation. So you can see the slides again there. Let's go through the agenda together for this session. We are going to have a brief Best Starts for Kids overview. And then we're going to talk about the criteria that need to be met to be eligible for this grant opportunity. After that, we will review the most important elements of the grant request for applications, or RFA. And then we are going to have some time to look at Zoom Grants and to go over that platform, because there may be people who are new to Zoom Grants, and it's really helpful to hear a few tips and tricks. So Sky is going to do that part. And then at the end, we're going to have some time to answer as many questions as we can. If any questions pop up while we're talking, please write them down and ask it. How to ask questions: you can put your questions into the Zoom chat box. Or if you'd like to, you can put your hand up and Sky will let me know. And then you can answer your question in the moment. I know that's sometimes really helpful to do. And then if a question pops up that doesn't get answered, or you think of something later, you can feel free to email me at the email address listed here. That will go to Sky's team, or Leslie Miller. She's the RFA lead for this. She's unable to be here today, so Sky's very helpfully taking her place. But when you send emails to this contract's email address, it'll also go to me, because they'll send it to me and say, hey, can you answer this? And then we'll work together as a team to answer any questions. And then let's see. We are going to post those frequently asked questions as a new document. There's currently, if you look right now in Zoom Grants, in the Documents tab, you'll see that there is an FAQ already posted. So people have already asked a lot of questions via email. And there are also questions that were asked last year that we just left in there so you can go in, and there are all kinds of really great questions and answers. So click that open, and then any questions that are answered today will be added to that, and then we'll upload a new one. So that's just a really helpful document I recommend you take a look at. Okay. So a few Best Start slides here are here because we want to set the framework for this request for applications that we're talking about today. So our vision for Best Starts for Kids is that every child in King County will be happy, healthy, safe, and thriving as they're growing up. We want to see babies who are born healthy. We want to see kids thriving, and we want to see young people grow up to be happy, healthy, successful adults. And our mission is that Best Starts for Kids strengthens families and communities so that babies are born healthy, children thrive, and they establish a strong foundation for life, and young people grow into happy, healthy adults. We are guided in everything we do by our Children Youth Advisory Board, the CYAB, and they provide leadership, and they wrote this equity statement that they developed together, and this leads us. So equity is an ardent journey toward well-being as defined by the affected. Equity is disruptive and uncomfortable and not voluntary. Equity is fundamental to the community we want to build. And I love coming back to that every time. So finally, this is the last slide to get us grounded in Best Starts. The principles of Best Starts are promotion, prevention, early intervention, and policies and systems change. So when we're funding, we always keep these at the core. Is the funding and activities that we're funding leading to either promotion, prevention, early intervention, or policies and system change? Okay, I'll leave this to you, Sky.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, all. As I mentioned before, Leslie Miller will be the RFA lead for this RFA. I am here supporting her while she is out. But as you send questions to that DCHS contracts at kingcounty.gov email address, Leslie will respond. If she's out, I will respond. But like Georgie said earlier, we will be working as a team to make sure that those answers are accurate. And, you know, Georgie is the project/program manager, sort of leading this, who would be supporting these projects as they become contracts. And she's a little bit separated from the RFA. So just make sure to direct all of the emails to all of the questions to the DCHS contracts email address, so that we can make sure that responses are consistent and we get everything, all of the questions and answers that are come our way up onto the RFA. We are the CMP team. We're the procurement experts for DCHS, and so that is one of the roles that we play, is supporting the folks as we go through these sort of RFA processes. So a little bit about this RFA. The purpose of the small grant opportunity is to support community-based organizations that are current awardees of BSK funds. This RFA seeks to support the infrastructure needed to enhance community-based organizations' capacity to provide services and programming. So this includes the systems, resources, and processes that sustain the key function of the organization. I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So who is this RFA for? Like, who's eligible to get these funds? So organizations who apply must be current Best Starts for Kids partners. And this means they must have a King County Best Starts for Kids contract in place. Organizations that are working on a Best Starts project but are not the primary partner are unfortunately not eligible in most cases to receive this grant. So they should not apply. There are organizations that have a fiscal sponsorship under another organization, but they're still the primary Best Starts grantee. Some organizations, for example, might have, like, for example, Rainier Valley Corps sometimes acts as a fiscal sponsor for other organizations that don't have their 501c3 designation yet. And the primary BSK grantee can apply for this grant, not the fiscal sponsor. So I hope that's clear. The one who wrote the grant and who's doing the work is the primary. And sometimes that means that you don't hold the contract the fiscal sponsor does, but you can still apply for this as well. And then, as we note in the RFA, we're prioritizing organizations that have been operating for less than 5 years and are expanding services to a new geographic area, or organizations that have not already gotten a small grant in this levy. So that means last April, we awarded small grants. So we are prioritizing organizations who fall into those categories, and we still encourage all BSK partners to apply for this opportunity. We don't know if many organizations will apply that have been operating less than 5 years or that are expanding services into a new area or who were awarded last year. And we do expect to be able to fund organizations that got a small grant last year. So don't let that hold you back. We're expecting to be able to fund about 80 applicants. So yeah, organizations funded by any Best Starts for Kids strategy are eligible also, including Communities of Opportunity, for example, that is under the Best Starts for Kids umbrella, and they are eligible. So how does this RFA connect to Best Starts for Kids? So these small grant awards are designed to support the infrastructure needed to strengthen Best Starts for Kids partners' capacity to provide the sort of services and programming that you want to provide. So small grant funds support all Best Starts strategies and investments. Organizations funded by any Best Starts strategy, including COO, as I mentioned, are eligible. We see the goal of these small grants as being able to help community-based organizations to deepen their long-term impact on the King County community. So we hope this support will strengthen infrastructure. And here's a summary and a timeline. This is also in the RFA, but we're just going to quickly mention it here and say it out loud, that the application due date is August 6th at 2 p.m. The award period, meaning the period during which your organization must spend these small grant funds, starts on the date of award, which we think and hope will be September 17th, barring any unforeseen problems. And then 90 days from the date that your check is issued to you or your funds reach you. So sometimes there's a little break in there that lengthens the 90 days where you find out that you're awarded. You can start purchasing the items that you said you would purchase in the grant application as soon as you get that award letter, and then for 90 days after you get the funds. And then the limit on the amount that you should ask for is $9,999. If you ask for a larger amount, then that's considered non-responsive to the grant instructions, so don't go above $9,999. And we anticipate being able to fund at least 80 applications. So this slide just provides another look at the dates that I just mentioned. We'll spend several weeks reading all the applications and scoring them according to the rubric, which you're going to find on page 9 of the RFA. And then September 17th is our hoped for date to email out award letters. We'll email the award letter to the person listed as the applicant and the CEO or executive director. I think there are 2 different places where you can put a name, a contact person's name, and the CEO or executive director on the summary tab. Hopefully it's still called the summary tab of the application in Zoom Grants. So reporting. So this is a really simple grant. We don't ask for a lot of reporting. We certainly don't need you to give us a report exactly. It's what we do require is that you submit receipts. And if you can, a general ledger report showing funds were spent within the award period. The receipts are absolutely vital. We have to get receipts. So what we do with this grant is provide the funds up front, and then you spend the money and then upload the receipts before the end of that 90-day period, usually right toward the end of that. Unless you spend the money right away, then upload them right away and get it out of your hair. So yeah, that's how it works. We want you to have the funds up front so that you don't have to use your own money to make these purchases. And then you may be asked to complete a brief online survey. I haven't actually been able to send out the survey this last time, I don't think. But if I can, I will definitely send out an online survey and just ask you, how was this experience applying? And then how did it affect your organization to get these funds? And did it make a difference for you? Because that really helps us to make sure that we have these funds in the future to do more of these kinds of grant opportunities. So RFA rating and review. This is how we're going to score the applications. They just have 5 scored questions. You'll find them all in the applications questions tab or application questions tab in the Zoom Grants application. The first question asks you to type in the Best Start strategy name that you're funded by. That just really helps us to know, okay, they're current Best Starts partner. For example, you could type in Help Me Grow or Childcare Subsidy or Expanded Learning. There are about 25 different names, or Youth and Family Homelessness Prevention Initiative, or, you know, there's a number of them. So if you have any questions about that, just send us an email, and then and just do your best with it. There's not like, you know, we're not going to be strict about that. And then the second question asks you to describe in detail the capacity building items for which you're requesting funding. So the second question is probably the most important question, because we'd really like to know what the need or the gap is, and what will be addressed with the resources that you're requesting. So this question and question 3 give the highest amount of points awarded. So they each give you 15 points, and they need to sort of align. So the third question asks for your small grant budget and the budget narrative. And so you want to align that with the second question. You're going to write about it. This is what the gap is. This is why we need the money. And then the third question will say, hey, line item out. We're going to fill this gap by purchasing these items, and it's going to total this much. There's a scoring rubric on page 9 in the RFA that explains how we're going to score these questions. And then the fourth question is just the year your organization was founded, and applicants will receive 2 points if they're an organization that was founded in 2019 or after. And then the fifth question asks if the capacity building resources you're requesting will help your organization to expand into a new geographic area in King County. If the answer is yes, just briefly describe how. This is only worth 3 points, so don't spend a lot of time on it. It does not need to be lengthy. A few sentences is fine. If the answer is no, you're not expanding into a new geographic area, that is completely fine too. Simply put, no, we're not expanding into a new geographic area. Okay, that is it for that slide. I wanted to give you a few more thoughts about the budget. So first, you should develop your budget. So this is question 3, with the understanding that awardees will be required to spend the funds within 90 days after their funds are issued to them. You cannot assign expenses to this grant award that occurred before the award date, which is going to be the date on your award letter. We hope that that is going to be around September 17th. So budget should be developed for the length of the award term, and then budget should be written in question 3 narrative box. No need to upload a spreadsheet, just reiterate that. And list out each item you propose to have funded by the small grant and the estimated cost. Justify your reasons for needing these items briefly. And then the total of all items needed can be more than what you request. So if you are, for example, going to buy a software package and it costs $13,000, just be clear, that's the total amount. The total amount that you're requesting is $9,999, for example, or less, or, if you have already gotten some of it covered. But you have the funds you need, the $3,000 you need to purchase this software. So just be clear that and justify your purchase in both the budget and then application narrative sections. And just a reminder to not include any full-time employees as budget requests, because this is a capacity building small grant. And just be sure to read the instructions. And this is an example of what we'd like your budget narrative to look like. You certainly don't have to ask for all, a long list of things. You can ask for a short list, but I've included a bunch of items so that you can see some allowable items to request. You don't, let's see. It's a listing of each item that you'd like to purchase. Tell us the number of items. For example, like we want to purchase 14 Chromebooks. So that really helps us to have a clear idea of what you're asking for. And then a simple description, and then the dollar amount that the items will cost. It'll probably require some research on your part, and it would be helpful sometimes to ask for bids. If, for example, you're asking for a few months of a contracted grant writer's time, or an event planner, or something else that needs a bid, it'll be really helpful to say, hey, we got a bid with the name of the organization that you're going to purchase from, to know what the real cost will be. And just a reminder, even though you're getting bids, don't purchase any of these prior to being awarded, because we cannot pay for things that were purchased prior to the date on the award letter. So here are some things that you could request. These are capacity building items that can be supported. And I want to emphasize that items can support the capacity for your entire organization, not just the BSK funded program within your organization. This list of examples is not comprehensive. You may have other needs that really fit this small grant opportunity. And that's where the FAQ, the questions and answers, could really help you. There might be other people who've had the same idea of how to spend the money and ask that question already, or you can ask it today. That would be great.
There is a question
yeah.
in the chat asking if it's allowable to include a small percentage in the budget to go towards admin expenses relating directly to the grant.
It's not. I have had that question before, and this is, it has to be on the items requested cannot include administrative costs. Thank you for that question, though. And I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer. Let's see. I also wanted to say you could see attachment B at the B as in Bob, or at the end of the RFA for other examples. These are past small grant projects that have been funded. So at the very end of the RFA, if you scroll all the way down, the very last page is attachment B with great examples. And then items that applicants should not put on their applications because they're not eligible. Expenses such as payroll, rent, consumables, utilities. What I mean about consumables is like, okay, you can ask for a printer, but you shouldn't put in that you're going to purchase, you need $50 for paper, for example. So expenses such as those don't ask for. Capital expenses like facility repairs, furniture, or property upkeep, we cannot pay for with this small grant. Advocacy work, meaning like if you wanted to hire a consultant who would do advocacy work, this small grant cannot support that either. And then the fourth one, capacity building services currently offered through the Best Starts Capacity Building Program. If you don't already know about the capacity building program, I'd love to tell you more about it, and you should email us if you're interested. We have consultants that are under contract in a number of different areas, things like HR, IT, equity and social justice, strategic planning, and they're experts in those things and can help. And I'm the coordinator for that work as well. And I'd be happy to connect you with consultants who can do that work for you. So you should review that and not ask for a consultant who could fulfill those roles in this small grant. And if you have any questions, though, just send me an email and we can make sure that you're asking for the right thing.
There is another question in the chat.
Okay.
A couple actually. One is, can it include consultants to provide additional services to the community served?
I'm not sure. You'd have to be more specific about that. There might be cases where we could, but it might be that we wouldn't be able to cover that, because that would be, if it's considered a program cost, then it would be something that your Best Starts for Kids program should be able to cover. So, but if it's something, I don't know, I guess if the main thing is if you can make a case in your application that this consultant, which is not covered by our capacity building program, would, or a tangible item would increase the capacity of your organization to reach more clients or to do your job more efficiently, then, or in some way improve the infrastructure of your organization. If you can make that case, then we might fund it. So if you wanted to be more sure before you asked for it, send us an email.
Great. We have another question. Can we use the grant award to renew subscriptions that we've already used, such as software, CRMs, or Foundation Directory?
Well, it's pretty clear in the RFA that, if I can get back to that slide. I don't know if I can. that you should ask for only new subscriptions or upgraded subscriptions. That's what is going to be competitive in this small grant. And if you can make a case for an ongoing subscription that has no change to it, would increase the capacity of your organization in some way, then you could ask for that. And it's possible that we would read your argument and go, yeah. So it's not the most competitive thing to do. And if there's something else that you could ask for that is an allowable item that you need, then it's more competitive to ask for that.
Yeah, so regarding the first question around, or the earlier question around consultants providing additional services to the community served, we got some clarification.
Okay.
Like a speech or behavioral support consultant?
I would say that could, so it's not an employee, it's a consultant that you would hire. And if you could get a bid from them and say, hey, it's going to cost us $3,000 to engage this consultant for a 1-month period, they're going to train up our employees so that they can provide these improved, services to our community. Yes, that would be something we could cover. And that's just an example, of cost. I'm sure things will be different from that, but.
Thank you. Those are all the questions we have right now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to do a follow-up question if I didn't fully answer that. Okay. All right. So let's move on to how to apply, and I'll turn it over to you, Sky.
Finding that unmute button. Hi, yes. Great. So just wanted to reiterate how to apply. Please apply on Zoom grants. Please respond to all of the questions under each tab. And if you have any questions about the RFA, like I mentioned earlier, please email us at dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov, and Leslie will respond to it. And if she is not available, then I probably will respond to it, or someone else from our team. Can we go to the next slide, please? So some instructions for applying on Zoom grants. So applications must be received no later than 2 p.m. on August 16th, 2024. That is because of Zoom grants is run on Colorado time. They leave the office earlier than we do. So if there's any technical difficulties, we like to close the application during the day so that if there's any issues, we can still reach the Zoom grants folks. Please regularly check Zoom grants for updates, clarifications, or amendments to the RFA. Sometimes that comes in like a frequently asked questions kind of document. I will show you where to look for those updates, and I encourage you to sort of continuously look at the list to see if there are any updates you have not yet seen. We add amendments as they come up, and that is not necessarily on a regular timeline. If you experience technical issues with Zoom grants, please submit a Zoom grants ticket by emailing questions@zoomgrants.com. If you are unable to get a resolution from Zoom grants, then you can go ahead and email us at dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov. Examples of technical issues might be difficulties logging in, difficulties getting folks sort of linked to your application so that multiple people can work on it, issues submitting, those kinds of things. Please reach out to questions@zoomgrants.com first. Please also allow sufficient time to ensure timely receipt of the application or to resolve any technical difficulties with Zoom grants. As we get closer towards the due dates, Zoom grants will start to be a little bit slower because more people will be on in the application trying to finish up their applications and submit. What we don't want is a situation where you don't get to submit because you're running into technical difficulties towards the end. So we highly encourage folks to do the application as early as possible, and to submit ahead of the deadline if possible, to kind of avoid getting caught up in that tangle. It looks like there's a question in the chat around allowable costs. I think we should push that until the end, so that we can kind of continue with the Zoom grants things. Okay. Yeah, let's move on to the demo. All right, so I will share my screen. Just the way my computer is set up, I can't quite see. Oh, there it is. Okay. This one. All right, just confirming that everyone can see my, oh, this is the wrong screen, I think. Screen share. Is it this one? Share that one. All right, can everybody see Zoom grants? All right. Okay. So yeah, so when you click on that link, it will bring you to this page. And if it doesn't bring you to this page, it'll bring you to a page that allows you to either preview or apply. So this is the preview here. To apply to Zoom grants, you're going to want to be logged in. That's really important. Usually there is a flag somewhere that says that you have to be logged in, but I'm logged in to apply, but I'm not seeing that right here. So the general format of this Zoom grants page is that there are going to be two kind of sets of blue tabs. The first set of blue tabs up at the top of the page show or hide various like guidance information. So this is all around information that you might need to be successful and that you would want to read before you started the application. And then down here, there's a second set of blue tabs. And I will get into this in a little bit, but this is where the application piece is that you would be filling out. So we'll start at the top. By default, all the instructional tabs are shown as open. So they're showing that. So the description tab is sort of this first one here, and it has a quick overview of the RFA, the timeline, and then information on like communication, how to get in contact with Leslie, and how to, submit questions. You can like click on this blue tab to hide that that tab's information. So you click here, it'll hide the description, and then we can go straight to the requirements tab. So the requirements tab is short and sweet. It kind of covers a quick overview of what is required for the grant. But there are a lot more details in the actual RFA document. There is also a restriction tab that outlines what will not be funded under this grant. And so we kind of covered that already. And then this RFA documents tab is where we will be uploading any amendments, and also where the RFA documents are. So for instance, if you wanted to read the RFA guidance, we would click on the description name here. It would open up this second window. You can click open, and that will open the PDF that has all of the information sort of in much more detail than we covered today, or that is covered in the description tabs. And that is just so that you have access and clarity and like sort of all of the details. We talked about like scoring and reviews, and all of that information is going to be in this document. The attachment A has the application questions, which are also here in Zoom grants. And you'll be answering them in Zoom grants, not in that document. And then this is the first of our amendments. Here is frequently asked questions that Georgie mentioned having uploaded already. as we get more questions, as the process goes on, we'll add additional documents. So you'll see that additional documents have been uploaded. And those will have all of the like additional questions that come in or any changes to any of the previous documents that we already have uploaded. All right, so that is these top tabs. And then down here in the second set of tabs, we have two. One for summary information that includes your amount requested, the name of your project, some information about you as an applicant. And then it has this question here about where you're planning on serving clients. This is really important for us to make sure that there is a understanding of the geographical spread of where the funding is going. So please check the boxes that apply around like where folks are being served. Let me just check the chat to make sure there's okay, I don't think there's any other questions right now. All right, then the second tab here is where the application questions will be. These are the questions that we were going over a minute ago. That include, you know, the name of your Best Starts for Kids strategy, proposal questions with that narrative and the budget, those quick questions. And that is the entirety of the application. When you are done with all of these questions, you would click submit. And then we would be able to receive your application. I do have a few tips or tricks that I'd like to go over. So I'm going to stop sharing here and ask Georgie if you could put the slides back up.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen? No,
I'm
not yet.
seeing anything right now.
Okay. Hold on. How's that look?
There we go. Yes. Okay, some tips for Zoom grants. There is no save button. So when you are inputting your information, the way that you will save your application is to click outside of the box that you are currently entering information in. So as you're typing information into the narrative or as you copy and paste, if you click outside of the answer box, a sort of saving button will flash up in the middle of your screen, and that will show you that your application is saving. Sometimes that saving sort of rectangle that pops up will just kind of keep going and won't go away. That means that Zoom Grant sort of timed you out of your application without telling you, which happens a lot. And so the only really way to rectify that is to refresh and hope that it's saved. It usually doesn't. So highly encourage folks to type out their answers outside of Zoom Grants and then copy and paste your answers into the correct boxes. If you copy and paste and you write your answers outside of Zoom Grants, just a note that Zoom Grants cannot handle any formatting. So make sure that your answers have no bullet points, bolding, underlining, italicizing, lists, anything like that before pasting it into the answer boxes.
Although you can use asterisks. That's what I usually do.
Yes. Or like the dash button, the minus, right? That's also Zoom Grants can handle that. But yeah, don't do any fancy formatting in Word and then put them in the box. Zoom grants will break. It will be miserable. Like I mentioned before, please do not leave this application to the last minute. Like I mentioned before, because of the technical difficulties with Zoom grants, we would hate for those technical difficulties to prevent you from applying. And if you are experiencing issues right up to the deadline, that you're not getting sufficient support from questions at zoomgrants.com, and we can't resolve it, you may email your application to dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov in advance of the deadline to avoid a late submission. We will accept that. Okay. Let's move on to additional resources. All right, so there are some resources that we sort of mentioned throughout this process. If you have questions after this information session, please email Leslie at dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov. If I say it enough, it'll haunt you in your dreams and you'll remember the email. Please also reference the frequently asked questions and amendments in that RFA documents tab that I showed you all earlier. That will be in Zoom Grants, and we will upload newer versions of those documents and any additional and pertinent information as often as we get it. So just reminder again to check that regularly. And then we were also going to upload these slides for the presentation today. They're not up there yet. We will upload them at the end of today's information session. Right, and with that, we'll open it up for questions. Friendly reminder that the applications are due on August 16th at 2 p.m. And we will be able to answer questions up until the 14th of August. So there are a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to start with those. Let me make sure I'm not missing any of them. Okay. So there's a question from Diane, making sure I understand if we have an expensive software subscription we use, we should not ask for help with the monthly expense. But if we wanted to add consultant support for using that application, we could ask for help with that.
Yeah, I thought that was a great way of putting it, Diane. That does make a lot of sense. You could, consider how this expensive software subscription, yeah, I don't know how you can make a case that it's at capacity building, but if you could think of some way that it is building, that this grant fund would build capacity, then you could try to make that argument, but it is a much safer bet to say that if you had a consultant that you needed to hire in order to improve your software system, yes, that is definitely something it's an allowable expense.
Great. There's another question. The first question on strategy wasn't on the previous capacity grants application. Where do we find which BSK strategy is funding our organization?
You might look back at when you first applied for Best Starts for Kids funding, the RFP that your organization completed in order to be Best Starts funded would have a name on it, and it would tell you which strategy it was that you were part of. You might be funded by several strategies. You only need to put one if you only know one. For example, if you're a program director or manager of a program, just one program within your organization, and you only know that strategy is funding, that's all we need. We just need to know you're funded by at least one Best Start strategy. But if you're still not sure, just send me an email. I can put my email address in the chat. And then you can email me directly with that question. And I know, and you could even ask me right now and I could look it up.
Okay. The next question is, are there restrictions on out-of-state expenses for conferences? For example, if we wanted to propose a conference for staff taking place in another state, could we include conference registration and or travel in our proposal?
You can.
Great.
We have funded that in the past, out-of-state conferences and the travel to and from.
Great. Let's see what the next, if there's any other questions. There are no more questions in the chat. So yeah, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to raise your hand or come off mute and ask.
I have a question. You're encouraging folks to, put in the application as early as possible. I was wondering, I know there is a deadline somewhere around the 16th. Will organizations be funded based on like how early they send the responses, or like everybody will have to wait until after the 16th?
Yeah, everyone will have to wait. It doesn't help you in any way to submit it early, except that you will avoid the Zoom grants. Unfortunately, has a tendency to slow way down and sometimes even stop and freeze up when people all try to apply right at the end at the deadline time. So that's why it's really great to apply a little early, but we will not take a look at any of the applications until after the 16th.
All right, we have another question in the chat. Can we propose to smaller projects that total $9,999 or less?
Yes, you can definitely do that. We've had many applications that say, hey, we'd like to buy these 10 computers and we want, this completely unrelated playground equipment piece. And if both of those are a capacity building and make an argument for building the capacity of your organization, then we'll fund both of those.
Great.
All right. Well, I guess the last thing I should say is that that comes off the top of my head with that question is it's possible that there are pieces in applications that don't fit capacity building, and we would take that out and only fund the pieces that were deemed a capacity building item. So you might not get your full ask. I think that is it, though. Any last questions? Really appreciate all these great questions today. Thanks. You've been a great group.
All right, great. I'm going to stop the recording. And yeah.